rodents. Well, I'm glad you are back. I hope I didn't frighten you too much with the story of animal-like protists yesterday. After all, the blob melting from the North Pole and attacking humanity again, frightening thought. Becoming infected with the plasmodium, causing malaria, makes me not want to be around mosquitoes. Or drinking untreated water because of giardia. Oh my goodness, and then dying of diarrhea? Imagine that on the epitaph of your tombstone. Here lies, well, let's not go any further on that. So let's change it a little bit here today, and let's talk about protists that are not so scary. Let's talk about plant-like protists. Boy, I'm having difficulty speaking. And I don't know if you can see this, but do I look a little bit darker now? The lights are going on and off here. I think we're having a little power outage. So hopefully I'll be able to finish this video before we lose power. All right, so let's talk about plant-like protists. What do you think plant-like protists are like, everybody? Yeah, plants. Very good. Which means plant-like protists are all autotrophs. Who can remember what an autotroph is? Remember, troph refers to feeding. Auto means self-feeding. That's what makes it plant-like, because it makes its own food, and it makes its own food from sunlight energy. In fact, I'm wondering if any of you can remember what substance is it in plants or plant-like protists that you think is utilized to make food from sunlight? Just say it if you know it. Very good. If you said chlorophyll or chloroplasts, fantastic. The chlorophyll is the chemical, and it's typically found in chloroplasts within the cellular structure of a plant or even a plant-like protist. So let's talk about plant-like protists in a little bit more detail as we explore 3 different groups of plant-like protists. We'll list them first, and then we'll unpack each one. So the first group of plant-like protists are called Euglena. Look at the word there, Euglena. The E is kind of silent. So as you're writing it, I want you to say it as well. Euglena. Euglena. Imagine taking the GL and putting it in front. Now, let's not make that glue, because then the E and the U would be switched. All right, the E and the U just sound like a U. Euglena. Euglena is the first group. The next one are my favorite. I love diatoms. Diatoms are just really super cool, I think. Diatoms. 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 Diatoms are the second group. And the third group are the Dinoflagellates. The Dinoflagellates. And flagellate, I would imagine you should be able to tell me, why do you think dinoflagellates are called dinoflagellates based on yesterday's lesson? Let me know. What do you think? What do you think dinoflagellates might have? We'll get to it in a little while. But let's begin with the first group here called Euglena. Euglena. Euglena, Iglena, Weglena, Euglena. Euglena have chloroplasts in them. All of these green structures here are chloroplasts. We'll see them in real life on Thursday in our lab activity. They have chloroplasts, and what do you think those chloroplasts are used to do? Make food, because they are photosynthetic or autotrophs. Now, here's a very interesting feature or characteristic of Euglena. Now, Euglena can't see us like I can see you or you can see me, but they have structures called an eye spot. This is the eye spot of the Euglena. Again, it's not an eyeball, it's not an actual structure that can see, it can only sense light. It is a light sensitive structure, kind of like maybe this time of year, some of you might put lights on the outside of your homes to decorate, and maybe you have little light sensors that detect when the sun goes down and it's no longer bright out, and that causes the power to be transmitted through the wire and light up the lights at night. That is a light sensor. Um, those light sensors can't see you. The light sensor can't see anything. The only thing those light sensors can do is detect the presence of light or the absence of light. It's either an on or off switch, basically. And it's a similar deal with these eye spots on Euglena. They detect either the presence or the absence of light. Now, I want to ask you a question. Why do you think it might be important for an autotrophic organism like a Euglena to have an eye spot? What benefit do you think having an eye spot has in the life of a Euglena? Maybe you suggested, well, if the Euglena is autotrophic, it has to make its own food, and it makes its own food using sunlight energy. And if it needs sunlight to make its own food so it can live, it has to get to the light. And in order to get to the light, it's got to be able to sense the light. That's exactly the benefit that these eye spots have for Euglena. They sense where it is lighter as opposed to where it's darker, and they go to the light. Go to the light. And when they get to the light, they can eat, they can feed, because their chloroplasts start manufacturing the food that they so desire. Also, notice what's on the back of Euglena, this whip-like structure. What do you think that whip-like structure is called? A flagella. And guess how the Euglena get from one place to another? It uses its flagellum. Flagellum is singular, flagella is plural. All right, let's move on to the next group. I just find this group fascinating. I don't know why. But diatoms. Di is a prefix like bi, which means two. Two. Di means two. Atom is a tiny structure. We'll learn about atoms in physical science in 8th grade in a lot more detail. But diatom, two tiny structures. In fact, that's what diatoms have. They have a two-part glassy shell. Now, look at this picture here. Again, like the foraminiferans yesterday, I find diatoms absolutely fantastic. That a unicellular organism can create such incredible, detailed structures that are only one cell large. And they're so actually delicate and beautiful. We'll be seeing some diatoms this week that, to me, they look like glass ornaments that you could hang on a tree. Now, when I say glass ornaments, I mean that quite literally, because these are glassy shells. They are made out of the same material that glass is made out of, which is silicon dioxide. also known as sand. It's a very common substance on planet Earth. You can go to any beach and you've got tons and tons of silicon dioxide or sand, and you can make glass out of sand humans can do it by adding incredible heat energy to the sand, and it melts it down, turns it into glass. In fact, New Jersey, our own state here, used to have one of the world's most famous glass production facilities down, I think, near Glassboro, down in South New Jersey. Was it Wheaton Village? There's a famous glass making village down there because of the beautiful sand that exists in southern New Jersey. So these diatoms manufacture these glassy shells all by themselves biologically. They don't need to add a lot of heat energy to it and melt the sand down. They got another means of doing it, which is incredible. But I would imagine that most of you have probably come into contact with diatoms in the last few hours, perhaps. Huh? What? When have I come into contact with diatoms? Well, let me ask you a question. Have any of you brushed your teeth today? I hope you all can say yes. And when you brushed your teeth, did you use toothpaste? I hope the answer is yes. Now, if you've used toothpaste, which I hope you all have you ever noticed that some toothpaste, especially the white toothpastes, if you get it between your teeth, you notice it's a little bit gritty? Like if you were bite down on toothpaste, it's kind of gritty. Well, there's a reason for that. It's because your toothpaste has dead diatoms in it. Did you hear that correctly? Yes, you did. Your toothpaste has dead diatoms in it. Diatoms are used in toothpaste. Now, some of you might be running to the bathroom to look at your toothpaste box and see the ingredients. You're not going to see dead diatoms because, let's face it, would you buy a product that you put in your mouth if you knew that there were dead organisms in it? Probably not. So if you look at the ingredients list on your toothpaste, look for the phrase hydrated silica. Undoubtedly, you will see it. Hydrated silica. Well, silica refers to silicon dioxide, that glassy material that the shells are made out of from diatoms. And the hydrated simply means water has been added. But it's a fancy euphemism for referring to the dead diatoms in your toothpaste. Now, here's a question for you. Why would they put dead diatoms in toothpaste? Well, if you think about it, diatoms made up of these glassy shells, when they're dead, they are like little sandpaper grit. They're abrasive, mildly abrasive, because they're only one cell large. So putting hydrated silica or dead diatoms into your toothpaste helps to clean your teeth. It is a mild abrasive that helps you clean all of the plaque and icky stuff off of your tooth surfaces. So yes, dead diatoms are in your toothpaste. Check it out if you don't believe me. Look in your toothpaste ingredients list. Now, so those are diatoms. Let's move to the next group, which are dinoflagellates. Dinoflagellates. Look at the prefix again. Di refers to two of something, and flagellates refers to flagella. So dinoflagellates are protists that have two flagella, which is pretty super cool, but not the coolest thing about many dinoflagellates. What am I talking about? Well, it's because some Dinoflagellates glow in the dark. Now, I don't know if you have ever spent a lot of time at the beach. As many of you know, I used to live at the beach, literally and figuratively. And I would spend days and nights at the beach. Sometimes nights were even more interesting, especially if the water crashing up on shore with the waves contained dinoflagellates. Now, I know you may not believe me if I just tell you, so I'm going to show you a video illustrating these glow in the dark dinoflagellates. So watch this video and check it out. Check it out. Okay, it looks like I have lost internet access with this storm that has gone by. So let me just try to reconnect here, and I'll just continue talking until I regain connection, which I think I now have. So let's try this again. Here we go.
Perhaps you've seen these videos online. They appear to show glowing blue waves breaking on the shores of some alien beach, but this is actually San Diego. To find out exactly what's going on here, we talked to marine biologist Michael Latz at the Scripps Institution of Oceanography at the University of California, San Diego.
Well, this video shows bioluminescence that is coming from a single-celled organism called a dinoflagellate. And in this case, there's really high concentrations of one species, which is called Lingolidinium polyedrum.
According to Latz, this organism is known to form algal blooms commonly called red tides.
These red tides are just a natural part of the ecosystem, but the challenging thing about them is that we don't understand why they occur, and we can't predict when they're going to occur. We know that there's a red tide when we actually see it. You look out on the ocean and you see during the day that the water is discolored. So it looks kind of reddish or brownish in color. But during the night, the organisms in this case are bioluminescent. And this is light that they emit from the cells.
In the wild, bioluminescence acts like a car alarm, going off at even the slightest bump from a predator.
The response by the dinoflagellate is like a reflex. So if it feels a certain amount of mechanical stress, then it's going to respond with light.
So whether it's a predator going in for a midnight snack, or the crashing of waves, a surfer, or a curious kayaker, the results are the same: insanely cool, glowing water. Latz notes that while some red tides can be toxic to people, this one is harmless.
You may not want to go in the water because there's a lot of organic material and you may view that as noxious, but certainly it's really a delightful thing to go swimming at night, and please go with somebody else to be safe, but to swim in it and just observe the bioluminescence for yourself.
For Discovery News, I'm Jorge Ribas, and that's Bioluminescent Waves Explained.
You got to admit, that's pretty cool. And I've seen it. And you know what? Words can't even describe how cool bioluminescent, or light from life, bioluminescent, dinoflagellates are dynamite. They are really, really outrageous and cool. All right, that brings us to our last group of protists called the fungus-like protists. And fungus-like protists, what do you think they're like? Fungus, that's right. So what exactly does that mean? Well, fungus-like protists are heterotrophic, and you may recall what heterotrophic means as opposed to autotrophic. It means they have to find their food from a different source, and they have cell walls. So cell walls, kind of like plants, but plants are autotrophic, not heterotrophic. So that's why we have this different category of fungus in the first place, and that's why we have fungus-like protists. Now, another interesting thing about fungus-like protists is that they reproduce with spores. And when we get into the fungi kingdom, we will see how real fungi, true fungi, also reproduce by means of spores as well. Another reason why these protists are considered fungus-like, because they are like fungi. Here's another characteristic. Fungus-like protists can move, typically at some point in their lives. They may not be able to move around their entire lives like some animal-like protists can, but some of them at some point in their lives do have the ability of locomotion. Now, as you can imagine, not all fungus-like protists are the same, and so there are 3 different groups of fungus-like protists that we're going to discuss briefly here today. The first one are called the water molds. Water mold is actually a fungus-like protist. Now, here's a kind of a sad question for you, but have any of you ever raised fish, like goldfish? Have any of you ever had a fish in your tank that died? Now, depending upon what caused its demise, it may float to the top or sink to the bottom. But have you ever seen, and it doesn't take long for it to happen, have you ever seen dead fish with a white fuzzy growth on it? That's when you know it's time to scoop it out of the tank and flush it down the toilet. It's probably also starting to stink by then too. Well, that's a water mold. A water mold, again, is a fungus-like protist. It's made up of unicellular, one-celled organisms. Lots of them. All right, the second type of fungus-like protists are called downy mildews. Now, downy mildews, I think, are also kind of interesting. And you'll see downy mildews growing in areas that are moist, that are damp, areas that you might find lichen or mosses growing. Now, mosses are plants, as we will learn in the near future. But if you see these white fuzzy structures, that would be a downy mildew. And that's a fungus-like protist. But the third group, I think, are in fact the most fascinating, and they are the slime molds. Slime molds are pretty funky. In fact, so funky are they that we're going to close today with a video of slime molds. So sit back and relax as we watch this little video on slime molds and hope that slime molds never infest you. All right, so let's check it out.
On these rotting tree trunks, something is alive. They can stand upright and produce spores, but they're not fungi or plants. When they're hungry, they spread across the forest, chasing food, but they're not animals. They're slime molds. A slime mold exists at the boundary between liquid and solid. Each one is like one big cell, and it moves in a very strange way. See how it pulses? A little bit forward, a little bit back, spreading and searching for bacteria or fungi to eat. But hold on. Today we have someone else who moves in strange ways. The host of It's Okay to Be Smart, Joe Hansen. Oh, hello, Joe.
Hey there. So from down here, it's pretty obvious that slime molds don't have legs or any appendages. They move just by changing their shape.
Scientists want to know how this works. So they brought a type of slime mold into the lab and fed it some oats. At the University of California in San Diego, they put a piece of slime mold under a microscope, watched its weird pulsating movement up close.
That motion is triggered by chemicals moving around inside it.
Water moving in waves carries tiny calcium molecules from back to front and back again. The molecules are too small to see. They're not those circles. Those are the slime mold's many nuclei, among other stuff. But scientists can track the calcium flow. In this video, it appears in light blue. The calcium triggers a reaction that makes the cell wall contract.
The slime mold squeezes itself, almost like a water balloon.
That contracting and sloshing helps the slime mold inch forward, bit by bit. And it kind of begs the question, could we build something that moves that way? I mean, usually we think of robots as solid, hard-edged machines that roll or walk from one place to another. But what if they were fluid and powered by chemical reactions? Like this Japanese walking gel, maybe this is a really early step towards some hypothetical robotic goo that could squeeze into the narrowest parts of your body. Hey Joe, imagine one of these inching through your arteries, helping clean them out as it goes.
That might be kind of, creepy. Hey Amy, I think I have a slime mold story even weirder than yours.
Oh yeah? Try me.
Well, over on my channel, we're gonna look at some slime molds that actually help each other. They're even kind of smart.
What? That's nuts. I'll be right over.
Thanks for having me on Deep Look, Amy. And everybody, you should definitely subscribe.
Pretty cool, and I had some other videos for you to watch as well regarding the slime mold that are even more outrageous than this one. So at this point, we have completed our notes for the week, and so tomorrow we are going to explore some of the protists under magnification and learn a little bit more about their similarities and differences in terms of their structure and characteristics. So until next time, I'll say bye-bye.